Hey, what's up friends? This is Mike from Tiny Improvements. I have a ludicrously simple tip for you that's going to make your sites look better with one line of CSS, and I cannot believe how easy this is, which is why I'm making a video about it. What we're looking at here is my website. I've made a change that is exactly one line of CSS between this and the version you're about to see, and I think the change is tremendous. Take a look at this. Again, version 1, version 2, version 1, version 2, version 1. How to set up self-healing URLs in Next.js for better SEO. Version 2, how to set up self-healing URLs in Next.js for better SEO. I think that's a little more readable, don't you? Maybe it isn't pronounced enough here. Let's look at a more detailed example. This is my newsletter page where I list off many newsletters that I've written in the past. If you're watching this and you don't subscribe already, I would love it if you did. I write a weekly newsletter called Tiny Improvements with product tips for startup founders, product builders, and indie hackers based on my experience building startups in the past and currently building my startup Craftwork, which is a Y Combinator backed startup. Now, let's take a look at this change here. It's much more pronounced when you see it multiple times. So what we're looking at is a CSS change that brings balance to text when it breaks across lines. And that is almost exactly what the change is. It is CSS text balance. If I pull this up on the Chrome for Developers site, you can see from my pal Adam Argyle, a super straightforward tutorial on what this thing looks like. And the change is pretty easy to see when it's animated like this, although it's a little hard to describe. What's happening is the balanced version is trying to make the text break into lines that are roughly evenly sized. So it has a lot more visual balance. It's a little easier to parse because your eye isn't jumping from one line to the next in quite as far of a distance on the balanced version versus the unbalanced version. It also works with Arabic text, right to left to right, doesn't matter. There are some limitations here. This balance rule works on up to 6 lines, which means that if you apply it to everything, it won't work for long paragraphs, for example. But the nature of this rule really applies to headings. This is more or less the way that this should be applied. And I'll show you how I did it on my site next. This is what you have to do to make this thing happen. On your site where you're implementing headings, you need to add a text balance rule to it. This is done with Tailwind. So it's applying the text wrap : balance CSS property to my headings. And this component happens to apply to all the headings on my site, so it's super easy to do. But if you had to do it somewhere else, it would look something like this. Const balanced heading equals return h1 style equals. There you go, text wrap balance. This would do it if you needed to do it one-off for some reason, but you could also apply this to block quotes like the Google article explains. So const balanced block quote equals text wrap balance. Or in Tailwind land, you could do class name equals text balance. And that would work just as well. Matter of fact, let's go do this for the block quote on my site too. I have this lovely block quote component that I use to render block quotes on my site, and I think it's a reasonable thing to add text balance here as well. So we're going to do that, and that will improve the aesthetics of my site. That's super nice. It's very subtle. People may never notice that this happens, but it should make it so that when your titles go onto a second line, they'll look that much nicer. Pretty cool, right? I thought so. Last thing, I know what you're thinking. Is this something that I can actually use yet? Well, the good news is pretty much yes. According to Can I Use, this is used by almost 90% of browsers on the internet, which is fantastic. My apologies to people who use IE11, Opera Mini, UC browser for Android, QQ browser, Baidu browser, or KaiOS browser. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see nice titles on my site, but in the meanwhile, the fallback scenario for this is that your text will wrap as it used to if you're using this rule. So I consider this relatively safe to use. It's also already supported by Tailwind, which is fantastic. I think you should go add this to your site and give it a shot. Legibility and readability are really important for user experience, and there's this thing called the aesthetic usability effect, that the better looking your site is, the better looking your product is, the more people will inherently like it. It's a scientifically proven thing that the better looking something is, the more people put value in it. So why not add a one-line change like this that gets you some real wins for free? All right, that's a quick tip. I hope it's helpful for you. Until next time, my name is Mike Bifulco. This is Tiny Improvements. Give them hell out there.